Hey you guys, what's up? Welcome back to my channel. As you can see here, my poor hair. She's au naturel these days, okay? Anyone who thought that my hair before was like the length was natural, absolutely not. I never tried to keep that like a secret. I had fake hair, okay? I had a lot of fake hair in my head. This is my natural hair. Let me just like sit up, okay? It's my natural color, and I just matched it to the, well, Hair by Noel, and matched it to my hair color, but this is her. This is my fair, fine hair. Anyway, we're still getting used to it, so bear with me. This is even like my little tiny like ponytail. Let me put my hair in a ponytail and we'll get started with this video. Okay, so in today's video, I am going to be doing my IUD update story situation. You guys have been waiting for this for a couple weeks. I apologize. I totally forgot to update, and then I was reading the comments on one of my other videos and I was like, oh yeah, I just never told anyone how that kind of came to a close. So I'm gonna do my makeup today. I have to take pictures for like some artwork later. So it like made sense to me. Let's do my makeup. I'll tell the story, tell you guys how everything went. And yeah, it's gonna be like my everyday makeup as per usual. I'm sorry about it. I'm gonna start with my Charlotte Tilbury Light Wonder foundation in Fair. Hopefully this matches my skin. Anyway, yeah, I was saying I have some breakouts here. I think it's just maskne, honestly. As you know, if you saw my, oh no, am I out of this? Maybe I'm not gonna use my Charlotte Tilbury Light Wonder foundation. Oh no. Okay, I guess we're gonna use Too Faced Comfort Matte Foundation in Marshmallow. This is like, yeah, that's pretty pale, but I'm pretty pale right now. So there you go. Anyway, I'm gonna use this. As you know, if you watched my last IUD video, I got the non-hormonal birth control. So I got the copper IUD. So it really shouldn't be affecting my skin all too much, other than maybe my body letting go of the hormones from the birth control. So I'm unsure if it has anything to do with that, but it is centered just right around where I wear my mask. So I'm thinking it's just maskne. I'm not thinking that it's like a side effect of the IUD. So anyway, if you missed the last video, I got an IUD inserted into my uterus, okay, because I was having some issues with my hormonal birth control, giving me kind of like situational depression that I had never experienced before, and I was just like not having a really good time with it. So I decided to get a non-hormonal birth control in the form of a copper IUD. And my experience was like quite horrific. It was really, really painful, the insertion, and I was having like a really, really hard time. The days, I think it was 3 and 4, it's like so long ago now. So it's hard for me to like fully remember which days it was, but it was as though I couldn't get out of bed. When I did get out of bed, I would have to walk like hunched over, like I was in such severe pain, where for 2.5, almost 3 days, I believe it was, I really couldn't move around. I wasn't mobile. I went through the channels. I went to I called the doctor, everything like that. Finally, she agreed to give me an ultrasound. So that's where we left off in the last video. I'm gonna tell you what happened after that. Can't remember what day it was. Let's pretend it's a Wednesday, because I think it was a Wednesday that I went in and I got my ultrasound. They told me to drink 2 liters of water 2 hours before I went in to get the ultrasound, I guess because I've had to do this before when I had an ovarian cyst. I guess because like if your bladder is more expanded, they can see things better. I don't know. You catch my drift. They make you do this when you're like pregnant getting an ultrasound as well. I did that. I drank 2 liters of water 2 hours before. I was bursting at the seams, okay? My bladder was so full. 2 liters of water is a lot of water, you guys. Like, that's... I was, like, in pain. That's how much water 2 liters of water is. I don't know if you've ever, like, actually drank the recommended dose or whatever that they tell you to take in. It's too much, quite frankly. It's too much. I'm gonna grab a concealer. I think we're gonna do Shape Tape, Tarte Shape Tape in light, just because I have to take these pictures afterwards and I don't, you know what I mean? I don't want to like have to mess around with the editing of the pictures and such. So anyway, I was like just in quite a bit of like discomfort, I should say. It wasn't like pain where I was like, I can't live, but it was just like, wow, this is wildly uncomfortable. So I am driving to the ultrasound clinic. Obviously there's COVID measures, so I can't go in until like 5 minutes before my appointment. They make me change my mask, blah, 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 normal stuff. And I'm sitting there waiting for my appointment. And I don't know how it is where any of you live, but oftentimes your tech, like your ultrasound tech or your doctor, isn't like ready for you right when you get there. So I'm sitting there in the waiting room waiting, and I'm like, okay, like it's not like I'm going to pee my pants, because like I can hold my bladder really well. It's just that like whatever the thing is that tells you have to pee is like very strong in me. So it's like all I can think about, but it's not like a situation where like I'm actually gonna pee my pants. So anyway, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna sneakily go pee a little bit and then come back. And so that's what I did. I just like went to the bathroom and I like peed a little bit, and then I came back and sat down, and then they were ready for me like pretty shortly after. Okay, I think I'm like semi-happy with that. For some reason, I feel like my eyes are like red. I have been crying because there's a baby in the house and I love them so much. I'm just gonna go in with the Urban Decay Beached Bronzer in Bronzed, just like on my cheeks and temples stuff. Anyway, they bring me in, and the tech like asked me what was going on. And so I told her, I was like, blah, blah, blah. I couldn't get out of bed. By this time, the pain had actually subsided quite significantly. I was kind of just feeling the pain that they had assumed I would be feeling, which was like cramping, similar to period cramps. And so I told them that as well. And I was like, I'm really concerned about the pain that I was feeling a couple days ago. And that's why I decided to keep this appointment. I'm not actually in that active pain anymore. She was like, no problem. So she goes and she puts the little jelly and the little thing on my, stomach area. And she's like, oh my goodness, you're really full. And I was like, well, yeah, they told me to drink 2 liters of water 2 hours before. And then she was like, no, like that's not what you're supposed to do. Like you're supposed to start drinking your water 2 hours before. And I want to say she said only a liter, but my doctor's office, 100%, it's not even my doctor. I keep calling her that, but it was the clinic sorry, there's a hair in my nose. Anyway, it was the office that inserted my IUD. It's not my regular family doctor. But that's what they told me. They said 2 liters of water 2 hours before. So anyway, she's like, you need to like go release some of this, because at a certain point it becomes more unhelpful to have it that full. So she told me to release 2 whole cups, and they weren't like little Dixie cups, okay? These were like almost like Red Solo cups full of water. She said, release that amount, and there were those cups in the bathroom. I went and I did that, and I was like, that's a lot of fluid. Like I couldn't believe that there was that much liquid in my bladder, to the point where like there was still enough in there that she could get a good read. Anyway, just wild. So this isn't medical advice, okay? But in my opinion, I don't think that we need to be drinking that much water, okay? It was just wild. And that happened to me a time before when I was getting an ultrasound for an ovarian cyst. So I'm just under the impression that we don't need to be drinking that much water, but that's none of my business. I'm just gonna put a little eye primer on my eyeballs here. So we do that. She puts the little ultrasound thing. She's like, okay, much better. And then she tells me, okay, for future reference, how you're feeling right now, this is how much liquid you should have in your bladder. And I was like, okay, well, I feel fine. So, that makes sense. She's looking around. Obviously, the ultrasound techs aren't allowed to tell you anything, because they're not the ones that make the final report. So I have to wait for my results for I'm not even joking you, 4 or 5 days they took to give me my results, which fine. I mean, I'm sure that those places are busy and it's not like their top priority. There's lots of different things that people go in for ultrasounds for. And so if I'm fine at the time, I'm sure they're not rushing to get to my file. But it is still hard when you are worried that something's really wrong. And especially if there's an issue with your IUD where it could be puncturing the uterine wall or something like that, there's a chance that it can create infertility in some instances. And so, all of these things, obviously, I catastrophized and I was like, this could be happening to me. I was just anxious in those few days. I'm just going to take my Tarte Toasted palette and use this shade S'more that I use constantly. And I'm just going to put that on my lid. So I'm waiting for the call. Finally, they call. The doctor says, the IUD is in the right place. Everything's fine. And I was like, okay, great. And she said, what I think happened because your ovaries don't have any cysts on them. And I don't have PCOS that I know of anyway. I constantly have cysts on my ovaries that are there and then being absorbed, and then there and then being absorbed. I've had them burst a couple times before, just really small ones that didn't require hospitalization or anything like that. So it's really, really rare for me, honestly, to not have a cyst on my ovary. Anytime I've had an ultrasound, anytime I've had pain in that area, you know, they've always said, oh, it's an ovarian cyst sort of thing. So I've really never had one where I haven't had a cyst on my ovary. And so she said, there's no cysts on your ovaries. So it's my professional opinion that you had a cyst burst on your ovary at home and you just chilled, basically. There's no way to definitively say that that's what happened in my understanding, because it had been so long since it burst, and because I didn't go to the hospital when it burst or anything like that. Looking back, I probably should have gone, because they can be quite dangerous if it's big enough or whatever. I don't know a whole ton about them, even though I have them so often. Mine usually do get reabsorbed like into my body, so I don't really have to worry about it too much. It's just like quite uncomfortable when it happens. I'm gonna go ahead and put on a little highlight. I'm just gonna use my Auric Glow Lust in Morganite. So in hindsight, I'm sure it could have been beneficial for me to go to the hospital because I was in such severe pain. But that's the other thing though, is like, if it wasn't life-threatening, because obviously it wasn't, because I didn't die, all they would have done, in my opinion, I don't know, you tell me. I feel like all they would have done is give me painkillers, and because of my past, I opt not to take anything that is a narcotic or has an opiate in it. So Advil and Tylenol is kind of what I take anytime I have anything done. Like when I had my lipoma removal, I just took Advil and Tylenol alternating. And anytime I need to take painkillers, it's always going to be Advil or Tylenol, basically. So I don't know that they really would have been helpful for me, because I wouldn't have opted for that anyway if it wasn't like, you know, a danger for me to be in that pain, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, I don't know. It was just such a weird experience having that one burst, because I have had them burst before where it's painful, but that lasted like for so long. So I'm wondering if it was just quite a bit bigger than the ones that I'm used to. Obviously not big enough where, you know, my life was in danger sort of thing. I'm just going in with this Tartelette palette, and I'm going to use Dreamer to go through my eyebrows. But the pain was just like so severe and unrelenting. There was nothing that I could do to get away from it. But great news that my IUD was in the right place. My opinion, this is not based in fact, it's not based in science. My opinion is that that cyst burst because of the trauma caused by the IUD. And by trauma, I don't want it to sound like, well, no, I mean, it is. It's a traumatic experience for your body to receive a foreign object. You know what I mean? And it could be necessary, but at the end of the day, it's still a foreign object in your body, right? So in my personal opinion, I do think that that cyst burst because of the IUD. It just, for me, it's too close together, and it had been years since I had had one burst. So, you know, but good to know that that wasn't the pain of the healing or whatever of the IUD. So if you don't get cysts very often, you probably won't experience what I experienced. You could, obviously, or you could experience pain that's similar just from the healing process, the recovery. Thankfully, that pain never came back. So that was just great. I'm going to take down my hair really quick here. I'm just going to go over top with this, I don't even know how to say this, Kosas bronzer. Probably just like, you know what I mean? Like just like warm up my face a little bit. Jeez Louise. Great news that that pain didn't come back. Great news that the IUD's in the right place. It's not causing any harm to me long term. I do feel like my body has started to accept the IUD. We're about like a month and a half in, I want to say, I think. maybe 2 months. And I do find that my cramping and stuff like that is so much less. Going to the gym and stuff like that, I'm now able to go through my workouts and not have that really bad cramping. I was finding about half an hour into my workout, I was having really intense pressure and cramping where I would have to leave the gym. Now that's not happening. So the recovery process was hard for me. The insertion was hard for me. The recovery in the first few weeks was really hard for me, especially because of that cyst that burst. And then over the next couple weeks, I would say it just got easier and easier, where now I feel like I'm in a place where it doesn't bother me. My periods, however, on the copper IUD, which was to be expected, it's why they weren't reluctant, I won't say, but I could tell that the doctor was a little bit biased against them because of how bad your periods can be when you're on this IUD or you have this IUD. My cramps are wild, and they're not just located in like my tummy area, you know what I mean? Like not right where my ovaries are. It's like cramping in my back. It's like my back is in so much pain, almost as if I've like pulled muscles. My skin feels like it's like really sore. Like I can't even describe it. You know when you have like a really bad fever and your skin just feels like it hurts? That's what it feels like, but without the fever. For me, you know, like it's gonna be different for everybody, but for me, that's what it feels like. Like my hair hurts, like the like my scalp, like touching my hair hurts when I'm PMSing. And the flow, like how heavy it has gotten is just wild. Like I was a person who was like so lucky. I had such a light flow. Like I could get away with just like not using any feminine products like after the first day, and it wouldn't really be a situation for me at all. And now that is not the case. I had to go out and buy products, and this is like, wow, poor me. It's really not that bad. Like it's not to the point where they talk about where it's worrisome that you're going to have an iron deficiency and stuff like that. Because I started with such a light flow, I think I now just have more of like a normal to heavy flow, whereas people who had a normal to heavy flow, I would assume would then be more likely to get to the point where they perhaps have to worry about the loss of blood, iron deficiency sort of thing. So by no means am I like, you know what I mean? Like, wow, this is the hardest. But it's interesting for me because it's something that I haven't like experienced before, you know, having to change my products like every 4 hours. I know this sounds so stupid because like this is what people have talked to me about periods my whole life. And I'm like, you know, like people who would be at work and every couple of hours they have to change it. I'm like, wow, like so crazy. Like I don't have to do that. You know what I mean? Not in a way where I'm like, you're lying. I'm just like, oh, like wild. Like I can't imagine. You know what I mean? And now it's like, okay, so now I am one of those people who has like a more normal to heavy flow. It doesn't bother me. It's just like a new thing, if that makes sense. The cramping and the pain, that bothers me because it's quite severe. And I did have really bad cramping before anyway. And so I think that I got it more so where if you're someone who never really had cramping during your periods, which I do know people like that, they would probably have like a lighter like move into the pain. Whereas for me, because I had like some pretty bad cramping with my period already, now I'm moving into like, oh wow, like I cannot even get to the point where my Advil and Tylenol has like worn off a little bit, you know, like I have to like stack that shit up, which again is like something I don't love because I don't like putting things into my body that don't need to be there. Honestly, I used to be really flippant about my decision to take Advil and Tylenol and stuff like that. And if you need it 100%, take it. It's just I don't prefer, you know what I mean? Like I don't love that I have to take it in order to like function during my period. So a little like annoying. It's only the first couple of days and then it does ease off just like my period did before. What's the other thing that people wanted to know? I haven't been intimate since I've had my IUD, RIP. So I can't speak to that at all. I can't speak to if I've had pain during intercourse or anything like that. I just don't know. I know that some people feel pain during intercourse. I know some people don't. So I don't have personal experience with that, so I can't let you know. I can say it's not painful for me to insert a tampon, which is like obviously completely different, but I'm not feeling pain when I'm doing that. This is like the closest thing that I could describe for it. So hopefully, fingers crossed, that's not the case for me, because otherwise for me it's kind of just like, okay, then what's the point? Other than that, that's basically the wrap up of my IUD story. Going through that for me was like, it was a lot. Like it took a lot on my mental health, honestly. Like I was in like a pretty bad place for a while there because I was in so much pain. I was so worried. Just my whole experience was really like not great. So would I get another one? I don't think I would, honestly. Oh, it's so hard to say, because if it stays like this for 5 years, then yeah, okay, the memories of how horrific it was are so distant that maybe I would do it again. I stay believing that there have to be better options. This is like an incredibly invasive, in my opinion, like maybe not medically invasive, but like kind of, you know what I mean? And especially emotionally invasive procedure that is kind of like touted as, you know, you go in, you go out, it's fine. It's kind of like, oh, you're like getting a dental cleaning, you know what I mean? Like that's how it's portrayed, in my opinion, online and to the patient. And I don't like that. I think that it's a lot more serious, and the recovery is a lot more serious than we're being told. And especially for our partners to know that this is like something that really serious that we're going through, and it can be like no problem. I know that there's lots of people in my comments on that video who didn't have an issue. There's also a lot of people in my comments on that video that did have a big issue, and I think that it's important to elevate that so that we know that there's that discrepancy. It's like you can't just take the people who didn't feel the pain or emotional fatigue of the procedure and be like, oh, this is like the status quo. It's like, but it's not. There's two sides. And so let's talk about both equally, instead of being like, wow, this is the best, easiest form of birth control ever. It's like, oh, but it's not for a lot of people. So yeah, I think that it's a great option if you know what you're in for. And I will say that after having it for a couple of months and feeling those recovery side effects kind of like dwindle away, I do feel quite differently about it now, but I don't feel differently about the insertion process and the recovery afterwards. I don't know if that helps you out, would help you with your decision to whatever. I think that it's important that you research all things, not just watch my video, watch like lots of people's videos, get lots of different perspectives, because everybody is different. So just because I had one experience doesn't mean you'll have the same experience. It's a very personal decision. Birth control, contraception in general is a very personal decision. So I think it's important, and it's important to educate ourselves, and also for doctors to educate us properly. So that is my experience with my copper IED. And I'm happy that I'm feeling, you know, pretty back to normal. Feels great. I'm PMSing right now, so not feeling the greatest, but we'll get through it. That's something that is just, you know, it's just part of Mother Nature. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that this video brought a little bit of closure for some of you about my experience, or for your experience as well. And other than that, I will see you in my next one. Bye.